kind of started having this strong desire to learn to dance, but it kind of seemed overwhelming. I'm the kind of person who has like absolutely no experience with dance. Yeah, I never did it in casual settings. I never had any classes. I never did anything. So I'm like literally starting from scratch. I didn't even know where to start. It was just like so overwhelming. You know, I got inspired by the various YouTube videos where they show somebody like, oh, I don't know how to dance, and then like 1 year later you're grooving, and then 5 years later you're like doing amazing stuff on the dance floor. I'm like, oh, that sounds awesome. Let's do it. I even tried some group classes where you'd go into like, I was doing West Coast swing. You'd go in, they teach you some moves, you know, you dance in the class, and then you kind of, you know, go into a social setting and start dancing. But ultimately, every time I tried to learn anything like this, it was like, I can't do any of it in a social setting. It's like, here, learn this move, and then go dance in a club and use that move. I'm like, what? You learn 1 or 2 moves, and what are you going to do that for like 10 hours in a dance club? You just can't do it. So it felt like it was missing the point. If I don't use what I'm learning, why am I bothering to spend all this time practicing? Like, I don't want to have some vague point 5 years later where, yes, I'm going to be amazing and I'm going to look good dancing. There's not enough motivation to get to that point. So after lots of kind of searching, I stumbled across Monica's freestyle dance method, and I basically just dove in and read everything she wrote and watched all her videos, and I'm like, this looks perfect. So, you know, I kind of started with the program, and I have absolutely no regrets with joining. She has a really interesting teaching style, like super systematized. Like, she clearly spent a long time thinking about exactly how to order the content, how to curate it, how to address all the questions she knows you probably have, and it just felt like a system I would actually stick to, and one that really resonated with me, like addressing all of my questions as far as like, well, you know, why have I tried all these other things and they didn't work, and why is this one going to work? And it just makes perfect sense. So I finally felt like I had a system I'd stick to, and I feel like no matter what your particular weaknesses are, like some people may not have rhythm, others are uncoordinated. You know, I have some history of, you know, like a band class or whatever, so I felt like I had a decent rhythm. My issue was that I was completely uncoordinated. So like, it doesn't matter how much rhythm you have if you can't put 2 moves together without falling apart. So that's something she focuses on separately. If you have no rhythm, she has, you know, entire lessons dedicated on learning rhythm. You know, beyond that, her feedback in the coaching calls is really invaluable. You know, sometimes it's just little things that you would never have noticed yourself, or if you did, it would be years later where you're like, oh, now that I know how to dance, I was doing that thing wrong. Well, you don't want to wait years for that feedback. You want it to get it right now. So there's like little fixes that she does that really improve your style and kind of get you thinking about what you're doing right or wrong. But, you know, other than that, also just getting the feedback from her that everything you did is correct is really helpful, because, you know, Monica is a master at this. So if she says you're doing it right, you're doing it right. So you don't need to go off on the dance floor and be like, do I know what I'm doing? Do I not? She's got your back. just know that Monica said you know what you're doing, and you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about like what some random guy that doesn't know what he's doing, you know, gives you feedback, because Monica says you did it right. So I go to a lot of EDM concerts with my wife, and over the last couple of months, I've actually started dancing to them. Dancing at the events rather than just kind of like doing the big bounce that everybody does. Before I started the program, I didn't know what I was doing on the dance floor, you know, whether it was an EDM concert or a wedding or whatever. And it was fun kind of getting out there when I started wanting to learn to dance, but I had no illusions that I looked good on the dance floor. I knew that I looked bad, and I was dancing despite knowing that I, you know, looked terrible. It was still fun, but there was a pretty large piece that was obviously missing. And now my dancing actually enhances my enjoyment of music. Like, I've always loved music as a person, so I felt like not knowing how to dance to it left something pretty big missing. And now that I feel like I'm grooving with it, you know, it feels like dancing and music just go hand in hand. Like, there's just some sort of enhancement that happens when you do both, and you actually can feel the music through your body being expressed. And that's absolutely the goal of, I feel like, the program, because freestyle is the only type of dance where you really just kind of let it flow and just kind of do it in the moment. And I loved, you know, learning to do it and kind of feeling like I know what I'm doing. So you can actually kind of groove in it in a way that feels really good. And I have just more fun listening to music now. I find myself just kind of randomly getting up and grooving just at random times. And not something I ever did. Also, my wife has some dance experience herself, so she's always been better than me, but I've never been one that enhanced her experience while dancing, and now she just randomly compliments me with like just multiple times I've gotten compliments like, "Wow, your dance has really improved." I told her I started the program, but I've never asked her like, "Hey, what do you think about my dancing now?" She's like, "Wow, that looks way better than you used to." So that feels really gratifying. And honestly, now I'm just really excited to like keep going. I've only finished session 3 so far, but just from the little bit that I've already learned, I feel like I'm miles ahead of where I was. So I'm like super excited to learn all the new stuff that's coming up. So look forward to working with Monica in the long term, and I want to get really good at this. So if you're interested in like a systematic way of learning and not just fumbling through YouTube for random tutorials, I think this is pretty much the ticket.